Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Planning Commission. The date is Monday, March 12th. Will everyone please rise for a pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. First item of tonight's agenda is the actual approval of the agenda. Does anyone need to make any changes or corrections at all?
Mr. Chairman, move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Moving on, the actual next item is the approval for the minutes for February 27th, 2012 meeting. Yes, Jerry.
I have one item that I'd like to have a correction on. It's
Okay.
on page 6, the third paragraph. Where it says, Pittsrick stated he is questioning the City Council's decision 5 years ago, May 1st, 2007, when Brad Aho wanted the closing off of Eden Prairie Road. At that meeting, if you could change it from when Brad Aho stated closing Eden Prairie Road was a separate decision from the decision on Prospect Road. Okay. When Brad Aho stated closing Eden Prairie Road was a separate decision from closing Prospect, or from building Prospect Road. That's it.
You good, Julie? Okay.
Mr. Chair, I've got another
Yes,
one.
please go ahead.
Next page, page 7, is just from the vote. I think the vote was 4-1. There were 5 of us there, I think. Am I accurate in my count?
I think that was correct.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, move to approve the minutes as amended.
Second?
A motion second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
One abstention here.
One.
Okay. So 3 total. Julie, you got those? Okay. All right, we'll move on to the public hearings for tonight. First item of business for public hearing is the Meadows at Riley Creek. The location of the project is 9845 Sky Lane. The request is for a zoning district change from rural to R1-13.5 on 5.03 acres and a preliminary plat of 5.03 acres into 12 lots and 1 outlot. And my understanding for this form is that this is being withdrawn. This application is being withdrawn. Mike, is there any further action needs to take place besides just voting on it?
The only action you need to take is to close the public hearing and accept the withdrawal of the Meadows at Riley Creek project.
Okay. Very good. Does commissioners have any comments or concerns with that? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. Moving on.
Do we have to do a second motion? Then?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go
Move
ahead.
to accept the withdrawal of the
Thank
Meadows
you.
at Riley Creek project and return the plans to the applicant without prejudice.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Jerry. Appreciate it. All right. Moving on would be the Hennepin Village site. The location of the project is 10127 and 9735 Eden Prairie Road. The request is for planned unit development concept review on 71.5 acres, a planned unit development district review on 71.5 acres, a zoning district change from rural to R1-13.5 on 24.37 acres, and a preliminary plat on 71.5 acres into 52 lots and 3 outlots. With that being said, I know this is a continuance. Will the proponent of the project please come forward? Just to get those commissioners that were absent up to speed really quick, and then we'll move along.
Good evening. My name is Alex Martin. I'm the Division Vice President for Toll Brothers. My office is 1440 Steeplechase Lane, Eagan, Minnesota, 55122. The project that's before you is the final phase of a larger master plan, Hennepin Village. It's Site B. Our project represents 52 single-family home sites as well as an additional lot that will include a pool and pool house. This is ultimately a reduction in the original approved PUD unit count from 180, I believe was the maximum at one point. The project will hopefully break ground this spring, with the model home completed this fall and sales commencing probably late summer, early fall, and closings beginning in 2013. Toll Brothers, we're not your typical production home builder. We tend to cater to a slightly higher, more luxury crowd. The homes will be anywhere from 3,000 to 4,400 square feet as they're built in the base plan, with the capacity to enlarge the footprints, finish basements, ultimately to increase the square footage. And ultimately, the homes are pretty much all custom. The homes will be built with a mix of masonry fronts, stucco, stone, brick, as well as James Hardy, or a fiber cement equal product, 30-year architectural shingles, pretty substantial homes. Base prices should be somewhere in the 600s, delivering probably upper 600s to mid 7s. I'd be more than welcome to answer any questions that anyone may have.
We'll let you know if we have any questions.
Great,
Thank you very much. So, Commissioners, before we go to City staff, really quick for those who weren't involved, we pretty much had some discussion on the outlots, the 52 lots. I think everyone, for the most part, was in accordance with everything. There's some questions that came up specifically, which I asked Mr. Franzen and City staff to look into in regards to a pool site and also a clubhouse site. And I believe, Mr. Franzen, you have talked with legal counsel and have a letter from them and some more information as far as that goes. Is that correct?
Yes. A couple of things. First, there's the memo in your packet, which is dated March 8th, 2012, from City Attorney Richard F. Rosso. We asked our City Attorney to look at the Master Association documents for Hennepin Village and to also look at the development agreements for Hennepin Village. If you go back to 2001, when the original development agreement between Hennepin Village Limited Partnership and the city signed that document, there is an exhibit that shows 2 pools and 2 clubhouses. One's on the east side of the creek, one's on the west side of the creek. So there is an obligation to build 2 pools and 2 clubhouses. One exists today near the intersection of Spring Road and Charleston Road. Proposal you have in front of you from Toll Brothers, they include a pool and a clubhouse, so they're fulfilling part of the obligation in the original development agreement as to just the construction of the pool and the clubhouse. What we asked our city attorney to look at was 2 things. One is, can this property be included as part of the master development agreement? The second one is, can the city require that the pool and the clubhouse be available for use by all residents in Hennepin Village? If you look at the master association documents, there is a section in there that talks about land to be added, and there's a list of parcels by legal description. So Site B is in there as a potential parcel that can be added. But 2 things have to happen. One is the association has to consent to this land being added, and secondly, the owner of this site, Toll, also has to agree and consent to this being added. We don't know, we haven't talked to the Master Association Board whether they want to add it or not, but we have heard from Toll through their attorney that they are not consenting to be part of the association. The second question has to do with the city's legal authority. And on the second page, our attorney is quoting Minnesota statutes, and that gives all cities in the state of Minnesota the ability to regulate certain types of things. And in here, we can regulate the setbacks, we can regulate landscaping, grading, drainage, streets, building construction, etc. And our attorney has concluded that all the city can legally do is obligate Toll Brothers, as part of the development agreement, to construct the pool, construct the clubhouse, where it's located on the proposed plans that you've seen in your packet, and it has to be built in accordance with building code requirements and fire code requirements. We do not have the authority granted by state law to make Toll Brothers make this pool and clubhouse available to any of the residents in the association outside of their own area. And that's something that they are doing as part of their proposal.
Thank you. A quick question I have for you. So then, in dealing with the city attorney, do you believe then, in looking at all the agreements, that everyone has met those thus far?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioners, what kind of information or comments, questions do you have? Jerry, go ahead.
No, thank you, Mr. Franzen, and thank you to the city attorney. That clears up the questions that I had. That, from my perspective, I think we need to go ahead with the project, and any further discussion about Prospect Road would be detrimental to the Toll Brothers, and I think that needs to be put to bed, too, and move forward with a really good project.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Kirk?
Well, I was going to say the same thing that Mr. Pittsrick just said. I agree with him completely. I think we left it with the group that there was an open question regarding the pool, and I think we've gotten a clear opinion relative to that is the answer that we promised that we would get. And I also would like to reinforce that I believe the Prospect Road issue, I have seen nothing in this proposal or anything that has come up that would suggest that any change to the decisions that were made by City Council previously regarding Prospect Road should be overruled or attempted to be overruled, and so I support to go forward with this program, this project.
Okay. Commissioner Schultz, did you have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, no, I was absent at the last Planning Commission meeting, but I did watch the video, pretty much the whole thing, and being familiar with the Hennepin Village development during my 6 years being on here, one of the questions that I had, I saw that Mr. Rosso just walked in, but the questions that I had were exactly what Jerry and John had. The city's legal liability to allow somebody in or out of the clubhouse and the pool. So that pretty much answered my questions.
Okay. Seeing that this is a public hearing, I will entertain some questions or some comments if anyone has any. I'll try to limit it to 3, if at all possible. Is there anybody out in the audience that has anything to add? Okay. Not seeing any. Commissioners, do you think you have enough information to go ahead and vote on this for tonight? Okay. I'll entertain a motion then.
Mr. Chairman, move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Mr. Chairman, move to recommend approval of the planned unit development concept review on 71.5 acres, planned unit development district review on 71.5 acres, zoning district change from rural to R1-13.5 on 24.73 acres, and preliminary plat of 71.5 acres into 52 lots and 3 outlots based on plans stamped dated February 21st, 2012, and staff report dated February 24th, 2012.
Motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations. You can move forward with your project. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, before you start, I need to look up a PowerPoint for the
Okay.
presentation.
Could I ask one question, Mr. Chairman, before we move on to this?
Will it affect what we just did?
No.
Feel free. Feel free.
No. One of the things that we talked about at the last meeting was the closing of Eden Prairie Road. And I just have a question for Mr. Rue. I know that a decision like that doesn't come before the Planning Commission. How will that decision be made, and how does that become public?
It'll be made at the City Council with the presentation of the feasibility study and a public hearing associated with that improvement,
Okay.
which will probably be sometime this summer, I presume.
And as part of that, will you be able to present to the community kind of a comprehensive plan of what the road plan is for everything from Eden Prairie Road over to Dell Road and upgrades of Dell Road and connections back that may go over MAC property and all those kinds of things?
I'm not sure how comprehensive it'll be. It's mostly for the improvements and the assessments associated with Eden Prairie Road.
Okay.
Obviously, the decision or the recommendation on what to do with Eden Prairie Road on the south end will be made in that report. But as far as connections elsewhere, we're not, that would be part of development as it proceeds through the neighborhoods.
I see. Well, I would just encourage you to make it as comprehensive as possible, because I think the community deserves to understand what impact that has on other, circulation options through the area.
Well, if we recommend a closure or a terminus cul-de-sac at the south end, there is reasons for that.
Right.
that we can go into.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Fenton, we're ready?
I'm ready. I believe the proponent is ready as well.
Okay, very good. So the next item on the agenda is Flying Cloud Landfill Parcel Subdivision. The location of the project is 9813 Flying Cloud Drive. The request is for a zoning district change from rural to I-2 on 12.4 acres and preliminary plat on 263.32 acres into one lot and two outlots. With that being said, will the proponent of the project please come forward? State your name, spell your last name for city record, and tell us a little bit about your project.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Bill Griffith, Griffith. I'm representing Wood Lake Sanitary Service in this application. Aaron Janus is also with me. He's the environmental manager for the site and for the company. And then after I'm done speaking, representatives of the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency are here with a PowerPoint explaining their activities that will follow. They're not directly related to this application in that it's not contingent, but it is related in the sense that it is the action that will follow. And so essentially what we're doing this evening with the city's assistance and permission is to rezone the property so that there are essentially about 24 to 25 acres left for the Wood Lake Sanitary Services to continue to operate as they have on the site. And so that operation is an area office, it's a hauling area, and a transfer station. And so those operations that have been there for many years will continue. And so essentially what we're doing with these actions is carving out that piece of the property, zoning it in the same fashion. So there's 12 acres that are zoned I-2 today. 24 acres will be zoned I-2, so we have all the same zoning on the property. And then the balance of the property will be transferred to the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency for their activities. And they will have both Outlot A, which is a large parcel, which encompasses the landfill, and Outlot B, which is adjacent to it and closer to the river valley. One of the conditions of approval that should be addressed by the PCA this evening is dedication of Outlot B. It's our understanding that that's a routine condition where there are wetlands or lowlands, that those lands be dedicated to the city. In this case, the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency would retain those lands until all construction activity is done. The reason for that is there are 2 monitoring wells on that outlot, and there's a stormwater outfall there. They can explain in greater detail why they need to retain ownership, but they certainly are open to discussion post-construction activity on transfer of that property. So I'll let them address that. That is essentially what is before you this evening, and if there are questions, I can answer those now, or we can listen to the Pollution Control Agency presentation.
Yeah, I would say let's listen to the presentation. As things come up, we'll feel free to ask.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you state your name for the record, please? Thank you.
My name is Tom Newman, N-E-W-M-A-N. I work for the Pollution Control Agency. I'm a project leader, I guess. And, yeah, I'm here to talk about the closed landfill program. Do we have a clicker or something? How do I move this thing forward?
You may have to go and sit in the chair and speak into the microphone.
Just around there, that other side of the desk there.
Sit right here. Might as well be comfortable making the presentation.
There you go.
Just click it there and that should.
Mr. Newman, if you can speak right in that microphone, please, that'd be
Sure,
helpful.
yeah.
Thank you.
With me today, I have Jeff Lewis, who's my manager. Doug Day wasn't able to attend today. And then also Ben Kleinsmith, who's the engineer on the project, and he's the engineer who will be in charge of construction on the project as well. So he'll be able to answer questions you have about any construction we have. What I'd like to do is talk about, I guess I was given by staff, I was given a sort of an agenda of what was to be talked about today, and so we'll give you a little bit of background, and then we'll talk about the land use plan. That's covered actually under 2 sections of the statute, subdivision 4 and subdivision 9 of 115B 412. And then Ben will talk a little bit about remediation
kind of the construction we are going to see at the landfill over the next 2 or 3 year period, and then kind of what our plans are for long-term for the property going forward, out beyond the construction. Give you a little bit of background to the program. I don't know how much of you are familiar with the closed landfill program, but it was started in 1994. Landfill Cleanup Act was initiated. It's really an alternative to Superfund. So sites that would have normally gone the Superfund route are now taken over by the long-term care of the state. And it's funded by garbage tax that we all pay, as well as there's some bonding for construction dollars. We're really responsible for managing the risk at the closed landfills. We do things like monitoring. We determine risk at the landfills. We have a database that we use to kind of evaluate where each of the landfills are, so we can prioritize what sites we'd like to work on. We build and maintain remedial systems, and you're going to hear about a lot of that this evening. We maintain the landfill properties. We have about 8,000 acres that we actually maintain across the state of Minnesota. You're going to see a map in a minute of all the different sites. And then we partner with the local government units on land use planning activities. Flying Cloud is one of these 112 closed landfills that we have in the program. You can see on the map over there, they're kind of scattered around the state of Minnesota. Obviously, most of them are going to be concentrated around the Twin Cities area, but give you an idea of where all these sites reside. Back in about 1995, the state of Minnesota and BFI signed what's called a binding agreement, which would outline the way that they could get their landfill into the program, into the closed landfill program. BFI at that time chose to retain the landfill property. Most of the landfills that I have in my program today are actually owned by, mostly by local government. We have a handful that are still privately owned. The state does not own most of the landfills that we have long-term care for. They wanted to continue to own the gas rights at the landfill because they use the methane gas off the landfill to generate electricity. And they wanted to maintain their business operations on the property as well. But this Pollution Control Agency took over the long-term care responsibility of that landfill then. So we did things like monitoring, sampling groundwater, the gas monitoring, those types of activities. And you're going to see a lot of this later on. But one of the things that's unique about the program, the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency did not prior to this program, at least I'm not aware. The Pollution Control Agency never owned property before. So we were given authority under 115B 412 subdivision 8 to own property. We could accept title of the property from the owner of the property if the commissioner, if the Pollution Control Agency felt that was in our best interest to take ownership. When we first started this program, the Attorney General's office indicated to us that we probably should be very careful and not take ownership of all the properties. We probably should try to take ownership of the more problematic sites and kind of see how this was going to work out before we plunged into owning a whole bunch of property at a lot of different and find out we had a lot of trouble. BFI is a responsible party. They've been, they take care of the property well, so we had no concerns about that. But in 2010, we began to realize that the landfill really needs some work to be done on it, and since we have long-term care of that property, we would probably need to take ownership of it because we use bond dollars for construction, and we can't spend bond dollars on privately owned property. So we had to begin a dialogue with BFI to take ownership of that property. And BFI seemed interested in doing that. They would transfer ownership of the permitted landfill. They would also give us the gas rights for the landfill gas. What they would maintain, of course, was their business operations. And that's why we're kind of here today, where they want to split off their business operations, and we would like to take ownership of the rest of the permitted acreage. To give you an idea about what the site looks like, you can see that where the buildings are over there in the kind of the west side, that's, I know it's probably easier. Ben, you want to walk over there? Can you go over there and point? show them where business operations are for BFI. Are over in that corner. That piece will get split off. Then down around where Ben's shoulder is, there's that little piece that goes down to the river. That's down there. That's Outlot B. The rest of it, up on top of the bluff, primarily is the landfill itself and the outlots around the landfill. So that's kind of the property we're talking about. Okay. I think that's we're probably as good as we're going to go, huh? We have already talked about an easement to the that will go across the BFI's property to get to the landfill. We're also working on a temporary easement. There is a leachate condensate collection tank. What happens? It kind of gets complicated. The landfill gas is collected. There is water condensate that collects. It collects in a tank. It has to be pumped out about quarterly, and we will do that operation after BFI gives us the property. And because of that, we need access to that condensate tank is also. So we'll probably get a temporary easement from BFI to drive across their property for that as well to get to get to the condensate tank. Some problems with the landfill were that the landfill will close quickly, and in 1988. And what we like to see, and you'll see some pictures of it later on, is we like to see a landfill that's kind of dome shaped because we want the water to run off the sides and not seep down into it. If you go out to the landfill today, what you're going to see is it's real bumpy. It has a lot of low areas, and what's happening is the water ponds up in these low areas, and then it slowly seeps through the soil and then down through the garbage and contaminates the groundwater. So what you want is an impervious cover on top to prevent that groundwater from seeping down through. And there was a site-wide active gas system that was installed in 1992. The waste footprint is about 87 acres today. You're going to see we want to reduce it quite a bit. We want to reduce it by about 30 acres. Like I said, there has been differential waste on the top, and that has caused the gas migration to actually to the east and the landfill gas system prevents the gas from moving away from the landfill. It collects all the gas, burns it off. If the gas system isn't working adequately, then it's able to move away from the landfill. And the gas system was actually shut down in the early 2000s because it didn't produce enough gas to generate electricity. To give you a general idea of what's going on at the landfill, the pipes that go up and down would represent the pipes that would gently suck the gas out of the landfill. And then it goes up into those wellheads above ground. Well, landfills are a warm environment, so there's a lot of water, a lot of moisture. What happens is when it gets up above the ground, it tends to condense. The water tends to condense out of it. It dribbles down, and it'll dribble down inside where that lateral line runs across. And it's supposed to flow kind of a downhill to the condensate tanks and be collected and hauled off to a wastewater plant. What happens if you get this differential settlement of the waste is that you start to get the dimples on the top. It starts to push down the laterals. The laterals start bowing. Eventually they may even buckle and pinch. And that's what's happening to the landfill now. And that's why we're getting a reduced gas flow. So we need to correct that issue. We need to put in a new gas system, and we need to put a new cover on the landfill. But the groundwater contamination is improving. What we have found when we do active gas extraction is that it tends to prevent the contaminant molecules from being pushed down with the droplets of water into the groundwater, so they're collected in by the active gas system and then they're burned off rather than being pushed down into the groundwater. So the groundwater contamination at the landfill is getting better, but we need to address the gas issues. Okay? Now, one of the first things that the landfill we did with the other kind of unique factor with the closed landfill program was that we have responsibility for a closed landfill use plan. Like I said, there are two parts to that. There's subdivision 4 and subdivision 9, and you have some responsibilities for both 4 and 9, and that's what we're going to talk about here for the next few slides. We're going to talk about subdivision 4 first, which is really the affected property notice, which you all got a copy of. Well, you didn't all, but did they get a copy for here? Probably not, huh? Okay. Mike Franson would have gotten a copy of this last, let's say, December, a copy of what's called an affected property notice, and we're going to go look at the maps here in a little bit. But, and it is the agency's responsibility to provide these maps to local government, and then that represent what's the groundwater and gas areas of concern around the landfill, and then the agency can make recommendations on what those and technical advice on what sorts of methods a local government unit might use to address these off-site contamination issues. The first one is going to be the groundwater issue, and which is that's the Flying Cloud landfill. That little orange line that you see around there, that's the waste footprint. And then the property is going to be the dotted yellow line. If you guys have little maps with you, then you can see that the dotted line is what I call the land management area. So it excludes the BFI business operations right now. And you can see that the green striped area is the groundwater contaminant plume, okay? So the groundwater is moving to the south and east. It's about 90 feet deep because the landfill is about 100 feet deep. So the groundwater is flowing underneath the landfill. And it generally goes to the river. So there's probably no concern as far as individuals. Everybody's on a public water system here. The only thing, anytime anyone would probably access the groundwater would be if there were a sand point or something like that. The contaminants of concern, of course, are vinyl chloride and tetrachloroethylene. They would be in, there's a write-up that came with the maps, and Mike Franson would have a copy of those write-ups that would tell you more about what the contaminants are and what all that means. The other area of concern we have with this site is going to be gas. As you may or may not know, landfills generate methane gas. It would be very comparable to natural gas. It's odorless. It's explosive. If it's in a basement or something, gets trapped in a basement or something like that. The area that you see, the sort of the gray outline, is about 300 feet out from the waste footprint, and that's the area of concern for us as far as the gas around that landfill. You can see that there are no houses, there are no residents within 800 feet of the landfill, so we're confident there will be no affected houses by this. You can see, though, that BFI's business operations are impacted by the landfill gas area of concern as it is today. Gas tends to move out more in the wintertime. When you have the ground frozen, it can travel further underground. In the summertime, it vents out easier, so it wouldn't travel as far. Let's see. I think that's about all we have to talk about there. The other half of subdivision 4 is I have the responsibility to notify you of these areas of concern and these plumes. You, as the local government unit, have the responsibility to incorporate this information into any land use plans that include the affected area. So if someone were to want to build a house, let's say, for instance, or put a well in the groundwater plume, for instance, then you would have to somehow have a mechanism in place to relay the information to that individual that they would be drilling into a contaminated aquifer. And you might think about something like a wellhead ordinance or something like that to address that kind of a concern. That might be something. Now, whether you do that is really your responsibility because you have that ability. Okay? And we'd be happy to talk to you about that more if you have more interest in kind of what we would suggest.
Now we're going to talk about subdivision 9. Subdivision 9 is the property, the landfill property. It's the area that's inside that dotted line. And there, the statute clearly states that the agency has to develop a land use plan for each landfill property. And the agency has to designate what the land use will be on that property. And local government must make their land use plans consistent with the agency's recommended land use. Okay? And this could result in local government having to change their ordinance, their zoning ordinance. The land management area we're talking about, again, is that black area. It's the area of the Flying Cloud landfill, excluding the business operations for BFI. What we have been suggesting, or what we've been recommending, is that local government units institute something called closed landfill restricted zoning ordinance. And we have several cities that have cities and counties that have done this. Winona County, I have one with the city of Burnsville right now. Bemidji's implementing it as we speak. And then the permitted use would be closed landfill management only. In other words, there would be no enclosed structures on top of the landfill. Probably more like just surface uses for the property kind of stuff, because we have some concerns about landfill gas. You're also going to see we're going to be investing about $17 million in remedial actions on this landfill. We'd like to keep people away from our investment, the state's investment on the landfill. Okay? So that's kind of land use plan 101 for me. The third part is, the next section is going to be remedial action. This is really, Ben's going to sort of talk, or Ben, you want to talk about it, or you want me? Okay. All right, we're going to talk about what we intend to do starting this fall when we take ownership of that landfill. As I said, we're going to want to do a lot of construction on the property, spend about $117 million. Basically, if you look at the landfill, the area to that dark line, that outlines the waste footprint as it is today. And the dark line where you can see that lobe that goes off to the south and west a little bit, that comes within about 150 feet of BFI's business operations. It's about 250 feet from their offices. It's way too close for us. We're going to have to move the waste back away from there. The waste is about, in that area, I guess, is about 28 foot deep. If you go up to the northern edge, it's about 100 feet deep. Okay? So what we want to do is we want to peel back the soil, the topsoil. We want to consolidate the waste footprint. We want to reduce that footprint by about 30 acres. We want to reslope the cover to facilitate drainage. Like I said, we want it more of a dome shape so the water runs off. Do you have the synthetic? Yeah. We're going to install a synthetic cover on the top of the landfill, which is going to it looks like a piece of this, okay? I can hand that around. And then we'll install a new active gas extraction system on the landfill. We're not going to do anything with the old system. We will just take out the whole old system, put a whole new system in on the landfill, and then we'll seed the area into permanent grass. And I'm not going to lie about you. This is going to be this is something of a major construction. There will involve heavy equipment. We do have to open up the landfill. We do have to pull waste back so that we can consolidate more of the waste. It's going to look something like this, at least for little bits and pieces of it for a while. We're not going to open it up as much as it's not going to be as dramatic as this, but certainly it will involve steam, graders and all kinds of heavy equipment. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to put a cover on like that. That's what those folks are doing there. And you can see the seal. There's a seal that goes down the middle of that. That's the way it was sealed. Each of those pieces, they're 25 foot wide, then they're sealed, they're heat sealed so that there's no water seeps through the cover of the landfill. You can also see how the landfill is going to be domed. You also get that little lip on the edge over there, so the cover goes down over the edge, and it prevents the gas from seeping out away from the landfill to a great extent. And like I said, so that outer black line that you see over there, eventually it will go into where that inner black line is. That will be the waste footprint when we're done. Okay? The line that goes between the inner dark line and the outer dark line is actually the edge of the liner. And it'll ensure at least a 200-foot buffer between us and BFI, the waste, and BFI's business operations then. And like I said before, it'll be reduced to the landfill from 87 to 57 acres. This is somewhat subject to, we're not completely done on the design yet, so this may change a bit, but this is conceptually, this is where we want to go. Okay. So the consequences of the construction then will be that obviously the landfill will have to be reopened a little bit, bits and pieces of it here and there anyhow, especially closer to the BFI's side over there. It'll take 2 to 3 years, and reconstruction of the landfill will result in minimal increased truck traffic. The only thing we're really looking at right now we can do all the work we need to do with what's on site. We can use the garbages to mound it up, and then we can use soils that are on site to cover it. But what will have to come in is some of the heavy equipment for relocating waste, and also the big rolls of plastic. That'll have to come from off-site, so that'll be brought in. And then work will be staged to minimize waste exposure as much as possible. As we're going to start this winter, it'll go over the winter. Most folks are going to have their houses closed up and stuff like that, so it won't be as dramatic as you might think. Long-term future plans. Eventually, we want to see the landfill zoned as closed landfill restricted, and identifies closed landfill management. As I said before, the majority of the landfill will remain probably in perpetuity, probably for as long as any of us in this room are going to remember, as pretty much off limits. We have a lot of remediation equipment. There's actually quite a bit of danger involved with the landfill. You may not think that, but we have a flare, we have a gas system, we have all kinds of stuff going on out there that, it's probably not a really safe place for most people. Some peripheral areas we probably could use for some surface types of development, and certainly the Outlot B, what we would like to do is probably hold that for the time being until after we've had a chance to complete this construction and see how what kind of impact we have on the area, because it does have the said basin does drain out that way. There's an outfall there. We do have some monitoring, groundwater monitoring wells out there. We do expect to see the groundwater plume decrease in size with a more enhanced cover and more active gas system. But these are all things that we have to, are going to have to take into account at some point in time and see how that works out. Be happy to answer any questions you guys have about what we're planning to do, or time frame, anything else.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, do you have any comments or questions at all?
I just have 2 real brief questions.
Okay.
Mr. Newman. The first question, Mr. Newman, did you, and I may have missed this, but did you already remediate the refuse site in Burnsville? Did you dome it already, or isn't that in the works, or I just kind of may have missed that?
Site in Burnsville?
Yeah, you
Which
had referenced
one?
a couple times the refuse site in
There's
Burnsville.
a freeway landfill, which is right on 35W as you come down off the hill. No, that one. Is that the one we're talking about, or is it the one further
yeah, the one
down
right
the
off
river?
35. And
No, that's privately owned. That's owned
Okay.
by,
Okay.
it's not owned by BFI, it must be Waste Management, huh? Yeah.
And secondly, regarding the methane gas area of concern, You mentioned that the closest residence, the footprint is 800 feet away
Correct.
from the area of concern. Is there any cause for concern or any hazard for the individuals that are on the BFI site?
As long as the gas system stays in operation, no. That tends to draw it in. We're being very conservative in our area, groundwater, our gas area of concern map right now.
Okay.
But if we have concerns all the time about gas, though, and certainly if the gas system were to go down for any length of time, we would have more concern because it might tend to migrate out farther, especially, like I said, if it were if it were really good hard winter and you had really hard frost in the ground, not like this last winter, you might see more migration, especially in the closer buildings.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Newman.
Jerry, do you have questions at all?
Go ahead. Okay. I was just wondering, just generally with the dome, what's the height differential from where it is today? Or, I mean, is it built up a lot? Or, would it be more visible? I haven't driven past this much.
You think it's 40 feet higher? Ben says 40 feet higher.
Okay. So a significant amount of topsoil you're bringing in.
No. We'll bring in no topsoil. No. What's going to happen is we'll take that 30 acres of garbage and bring it over and put it on top.
Okay.
The 50 acres, and then we'll put dirt back on top of that.
But just like a little layer of dirt.
No. It's about 3 feet of dirt. I mean, we'll have. It looks kind of like a layer cake. It would have like the plastic would go on top of that, and then there's a synthetic drainage layer and rooting soil and topsoil. So there's like a layer cake that goes on top of that. So there'll be like a subsoil and a topsoil and a plastic liner.
And do you seed on top of that then?
Huh? Yeah, then seed would go on top of that, correct. Mm-hmm.
So forgive me, but maybe I'm just not getting this. But from the surface today, say it's flat, you're going up 40.
4 stories.
Correct.
40 feet.
That's what Ben says, yeah. That's what I'm hearing.
I just, is it much more, I'm just wondering from, an aesthetic standpoint, I don't know how much you can see it on flying cloud, or will you be able to now? Is there going to be this gigantic mountain?
But it'll be a dome.
It'll be a hill. I mean, I can refer you to other landfills. I can refer you to other landfills around the city. Actually, I'm sure you've driven by numerous landfills. I know I do, and I see them all the time. But then my wife just has it. She gets irritated with me all the time. Oh, well, yeah, she did. I don't care, but they're really not that obvious, because normally what happens, like this one's going to sit behind BFI's business operations. It's going to, it's probably just going to look like a mounded hill someplace out there, and not really be too obvious to anybody, really.
I just know we have a lot of residents to the east of there, and now they probably look out on just like open land right now and don't really think much about it. But now there's going to be this big mountain.
But the concern with that, and there are actually a couple of concerns I keep thinking about. One is certainly FAA has, once it starts ponding a little bit on top, then you're going to start seeing ducks and some waterfowl in the ponds. And that's going to create a problem for the airline, for the runway operation for Flying Cloud Airport. And then, like I said, the other thing is it does exacerbate groundwater contamination, because you get the pond, and pretty soon the water just sits there for weeks on end, just dribbles through the garbage, and that's just another. It just makes the groundwater contamination worse. So.
Okay. And then just more out of curiosity, in situations where there isn't a transfer of ownership and it stays in private hands, maybe down the road, what if some of the uses that people have made out of these sites? I'm just out of curiosity.
We have, I have disc golf courses on some. I have parks on some. I have a shooting range on one. The sheriff actually goes out and they use it for their whatever their qualifying range is. Let's see, what else? Generally speaking, there's surface uses. I have some people that'll, they log off portions of the landfill. A lot of my landfills are up north, so so they may use them for logging off portions of the landfill for trees. We have a couple that are farmers. that farm portions of it, not on the landfill itself, but around the landfill, those. So those are the kinds of uses that are done. I think normally our concern would be any kind of there are going to be two concerns with this property. One is probably any kind of an enclosed structure on or close to the landfill because of the gas. The other concern we would have is, like I said, we're going to use bond dollars to remediate the site, and that precludes certain activities that would be that for taxable income kind of things. I guess a good example might be, okay, let's say the city comes along and they say, gosh, what we'd like to do over here in this part is we'd like to put in those little peace garden kind of things, that people have, and we have a little garden and it's all platted out, but the city's going to say, we have a couple of city workers that'll be more than happy to plot out the property, and they're going to rototill it, and every fall they'll come out and they'll clean it up, and we're going to charge people a little bit for the rental fee, just to sort of defray costs a little bit. Then the other alternative to that would be you have a company that comes in and that's what they do. Okay, they maintain those sites for you, but they're a for-profit company. Okay, so in either case, you're probably going to have to go to Minnesota Management and Budget to their bonding commission and sort of explain what you would like to do with this property when it's bonded. But my gut would say that the city doing it with city employees is probably going to get approved, but you're having a for-profit company do it is probably not going to get approved. Just the way because that's the way the bonding works, is you can't have a taxable income off of a bonding property. The state of Minnesota can't, because it's non-taxable. Their attitude is we can't better the property so you can make money on it. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Just a couple questions for you. One is there a liner under this?
No, there is not. That's one of the problems. That's one of the reasons in my program. Almost all of the sites in my program are unlined.
Right.
So there's only a couple.
So as part of this, do you envision some kind of a liner or barrier along that western edge? And then
No.
Can you do anything on the eastern edge where there's that significant water seepage towards the east and the houses to
We have
create
to,
some kind
like
of
I said,
barrier?
we're looking at, well, depending on where we go, it could be as much as 100 feet deep. So there is no way we could
couldn't get
dig
under it.
down and sort of pile it up in a corner someplace and they'll put a liner out there. No.
And the other thing is the speed of the project. About how many cubic yards of material are you moving?
8 million.
8 million?
Oh, I mean, no,
Oh,
it
that
wouldn't be that
sounds like
much.
a
How
lot,
much do
right.
you know? I mean, there are 8 million cubic yards in the landfill, I'm
In the
sorry.
whole landfill. So maybe you're moving 2 million or million or...
Yeah, maybe 2 million. We could say 2 million, sure.
2 to 3 years seems like a long time. Is there some way that you can look at a year or a year and a half to kind of minimize the impact of the community? Because the contractors are going to bring in really big equipment to move this kind of stuff, I would think,
Right.
and they're not going to want to just have it sitting around. They're going to want to get in, get it done, and move on.
I think what we might be able to say there is we're not done. I know Ben and we haven't gotten the final designs yet. I think we could convey to them that we'd like to try to have most of the work, see if they could stage the work more in the wintertime, more of the work. Yeah, it's going to drag out it's going to drag it out probably another.
It depends on how many backhoes you have going, because if you have multiple sites going, sure you can move it faster, but you have more landfill open.
Right.
So, and we're looking to minimize how much is actually open at any given time to have them not tear off the whole thing.
Right.
And some sites they do that because there's nobody that lives there, and so nobody cares. So they'll tear off the whole cover and it's exposed and they'll move it. But here we're gonna do it in sections, cover back up as we go, and makes it take a little bit longer.
Yeah. Well, try to find the right balance, I guess.
Oh, and I think we will be back. I mean, especially if you guys want us back, we will be back as we get closer to what the design will be. And then we can sort of talk about Right. No, like I said, right now, it's been we've been kind of just penciling it in with, I don't know, what we have, 75% in 90%? What do we have for 60% design right now? So we've still got a ways to go on design.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, just one more thing, and this may be more for Mr. Franzen, but so we're just looking at these two items tonight. They'll come back to us and/or the city council on the actual construction. I guess I'm still a little concerned about the 40 feet, but how does that all shake out?
Well, the action before you tonight is just the zoning and the plat.
Yeah.
And there's some conditions of approval that go with it. We would expect the MPCA to come back once their final plans are put together, so we can ask more questions about that, so we can get a more definitive answer about the time frame under which that's going to be constructed, or any modifications from the plan that you see in this evening. So we're going to send out notices for that again in the same manner that we did. There's another procedure we have to go through. We have to amend our comprehensive plan to call the landfill something different than what it is today. So you've got the last 2 pages of the staff report. The second to last one has the existing guide plan. So I have to redesignate that either closed landfill or land management area, because that's a statutory requirement of the state of Minnesota. And then for every land use district like you have, much like our residential guided areas have different zoning districts, we'll have to adopt a zoning district that regulates the use of the landfill. So that'll be a public hearing. And we're going to have to do another public hearing when we talk about properties that are affected by where the water goes. So we're going to have to adopt some rules and regulations relating to structures built in those areas and drilling wells in those areas. So we're going to have 3 more cuts at this, at least in front of the commission, 3 more cuts at this in front of the council. This is also going to be a public hearing and a rezoning, a public hearing at the city council for the rezoning and the plat. So the residents will have a chance to come and ask questions of the council then too. So there'll be a lot of public notice, public involvement before they finally get going on things.
Okay.
Anybody else have any other questions, commissioners? I have a question. Is this, is there a fence that's around the property right now?
Yes.
It's completely fenced and secure? Okay. Very good. Seeing that this is an open meeting, is there anyone out in the audience that has any comments or concerns or any questions? Yes, sir. Please come ahead. Please come forward. Can you come to the microphone, please? Can you state your last name, say your full name, spell your last name, and give us your address, please?
Hi, Brian Reed, R-E-I-D. I live on Kirsten Place, the eastern boundary of the map we were looking at. So I have a couple of questions/comments. Don't know if the rezoning impacts the map you showed where you're moving the garbage to the east, and maybe we can put that up.
Yeah, in fact, as one of the commissioners, can you hand yours over there? Because I'd like the TV audience to be able to see it as well, so we can put a camera on it.
Let's see what we can do here.
So the basic questions I have are...
Is this going to be good enough for you, or are you going to need...
no, that's the one I was thinking of. Right.
Oh, good. Hey, great minds.
So you mentioned that the western edge is about 25 feet deep, garbage-wise, and the eastern edge is 100 feet deep?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was listening.
I believe you mentioned the western edge of that...
Is probably about, let's say, 28, 30 feet deep. Correct.
25 to 30 feet deep, and the eastern edge is 100 feet?
Well, the northern edge, I know,
Northern edge?
is 100. I don't know what do you know what the eastern edge is? 60.
So I'm assuming the reason you're pushing things closer to the residents, basically, is because you've got a deeper layer of garbage, and it would be more difficult to go in and dig out 100 feet versus 23 feet.
No, we're not digging. We're not moving it, pushing it closer to the residents. I think all we're doing is taking that lobe that's in the southwest corner and just piling it up on top of the existing.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. You're not moving the eastern boundary.
Nothing's going east anywhere.
Okay, so the root of my question is, I heard 40 feet, And as a resident on that boundary, as I look out, I believe you were saying that today you look out, it's pretty flat. A 40-foot dome is definitely an eyesore. Is it possible, as you're looking at this, to enlarge the footprint slightly and reduce the height that you go up? Is a question. I also had a question with respect to the time.
Okay.
Agree to, I forget who said it, but 2 to 3 years, I believe, Jerry, you were saying, it is a very long time for a project of this sort of scope. Does the current landfill have an impermeable layer on it? It does not. Yeah, okay. And what is BFI's business operation, current operation? Is it a...
Well, they have all their, when should I?
Well, we wait for all the questions.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right.
And so the question was, you were saying the garbage layer was too close to the business operation, and I wanted to understand more why you felt that way.
Well, what we did was, if you remember the area of concern for the gas map.
I'll sit down and...
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Back up here, see if we can get back up to that map.
And feel free to show us on the camera over there. The control room operator in the back will push up that camera, and then you can see that, and the audience, the TV audience can see that as well.
How do I...
He'll pull the camera up in just a second here.
No, this way?
Oh, he's got the exhibit there.
There we go. Perfect. If you can just point to that, that would be great.
Oh, okay. All right, so if you look at, what I said was, if you look at here, this is BFI's business operations here.
And can you grab that microphone and pull it right in front of you as well? I'm sorry. Making you
Not loud
multitask
enough?
here.
Geez, I thought I was... Okay.
Thank you.
And this is a 300-foot area of compliant, area of concern around the landfill. So from the footprint here to 300 foot out, it impacts at least some of BFI's business operations here. If you look at from here, the footprint, it's 800 feet to the nearest resident. That means it's 500 feet from the edge of the area of concern to the nearest resident. So we don't have any concern out here as far as residents being impacted by the gas. But over here, there is some concern that at least some of their buildings could be potentially impacted by the area of concern for their business operations.
So, Mr. Newman, just to be clear then, in what you're saying, you're concerned because of the closeness to the building, specifically more or less the closed building, to the impact of where the gas is setting, versus on the other side because you've got more distance from it.
Correct,
Okay.
right. And we're not moving, like I said before, we're taking all this waste and just piling it up over here, so we're not getting any closer to residents here.
So,
Mr. Reed, if you can hold your question. You can come forward, just talk in the microphone, please. Thank you.
so the question I would have is why are you proposing to push as far back away from the business operation as that other slide showed? Why not go to the distance that you feel safe, and whatever you're able to mound up, and you're not building to a height of 40 feet?
Mr. Reed, I think that's your main concern, is it not? It's just the...
Well, multiple
40 feet.
concerns,
Right.
right? You've got methane gas. You look at the groundwater plume, and it is flowing under the neighborhood. I agree it's probably not a big concern if you're not drilling wells. But you're moving the garbage to the north and east, which is going to cause that plume to move that direction as well, potentially be more concentrated under the neighborhood?
No, that won't happen. You can pile gas, you could pile the garbage up 100 feet high over there, you're still only going to have a 300-foot compliance boundary. It doesn't, making it higher doesn't spread out the area of concern.
No, it should minimize the western edge of the plume and be more concentrated plume? No?
No.
Okay.
No.
I'm definitely not an expert.
But, and the other thing we're going to have is an active gas system, remember, so that it actually should draw the plume in. The gas area concern should be made smaller because we're going to have an active gas system that's working 100% rather than right now, which it's not working 100%.
Is it more concentrated then by shrinking the footprint, the gas concern?
No.
No?
No.
Then, yes, the eyesore property values, 40-foot, is definitely a large concern of mine.
Jeff wants to say something. He's my manager. He can.
Can you state your name, spell your last name for record, too, please?
My name is Jeff Lewis, Lewis, and I just wanted to address that issue about consolidation of the footprint. A lot of the costs of our systems are tied up both in the gas extraction as well as the synthetic cover, and it's a lot cheaper for us to move the garbage around and shrink the footprint, so we have to spend less money on the cover system and have our gas extraction system over a smaller footprint instead of spread out. So when we design them, what we try to do is look at, the areas obviously that are 100 feet deep. We can't afford to really pull back all of that, but the other areas where it's a lot shallower, it's cheaper for us to shrink it, and then our long-term O&M costs for operating that gas extraction system are a lot less too. We have had a couple of areas, though, where we've tried to look at how much we can come up and when does it start impacting the sight lines for some of the neighbors and stuff, and we'll certainly take a look at that as we get closer to our final design. The 40 feet up is kind of from the existing. It's not 40 feet up from the top of the bluff. A lot of that landfill is down below already, so it's not going to be sticking 40 feet above the rim kind of around the edge.
Okay. Thank you.
I think I did want to say, I will convey your concern, though. We will talk to the engineers and indicate that there is you guys have a concern that 40 feet might be a little high. Is there some way we can look at that? As I think Mike Franzen indicated, there will be other meetings that are held, and I know one of the meetings that they had was they actually had like roadside views. This is what it would look like driving down the road. Here's what we think the landfill would look like when it's completed if you were driving down Flying Cloud Drive. So that would be something that would be forthcoming. Like I said, we're only at 60% design right now, so that's not, we don't have anything like that. We actually talked about bringing something like that, but it's really, it may not be very representative at all right now, since we really don't know exactly what this thing will look like when we're finally done. I'm sorry, but...
Yes, will you please come, a microphone. Doesn't matter which one. Can you state your full name, please, too?
Ben Kleismith, Klismith. Yeah, we recently redesigned the Hopkins landfill that we're also doing construction this construction season because of concerns of the look to residents. We initially designed everything to be the most efficient cost-wise, because a lot of these landfills are just nobody's concerned because they're out in the middle of nowhere. So we look to minimize the cost to the public, and then if there's somebody that's concerned about it, we can work with them, and we did recently with Hopkins to take off the top and make it look more natural than a peak that was like, a 5-to-1 slope coming together. It doesn't look natural, but a gentle rolling hill doesn't actually look bad, because this is just going to be a grassland, just as it is now. So it's not going to be a dirt pile or something like that. So
okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Would you like to come forward? Please come ahead. Please state your name for record, too, please.
My name is Michael Seelig, Seelig. I'm at 10232 Kirsten Place. And if you could bring that picture up, I can show you where my house is, why this is important to me.
The first one we were looking at?
This one right here.
Oh, okay, sure.
I am right here at this corner.
Oh, okay.
That's my backyard we're talking about.
So you're the one that was 500 feet from the plume, or 800 feet from the
footprint? It seems like a lot closer.
Well,
so I first want to say I recognize the need to address this. But what I'm seeing is we have a mismanaged site that now the state and all of us have to pay for and clean up. So that seems a little bit odd to me. And then transferring ownership so we can do that just also seems a little bit strange. And, you know, when you talk about it being behind BFI, it's really my backyard. So look at it from the other side. It's what I look at when I'm sitting out, you know, having a barbecue in my backyard. It's so when you talk about taking something that's relatively flat, even a little bit of a valley, and even if it's only 20 feet, you're now talking about obstructing what we purchased our house for. So that there's a concern there. The length of the project time concerns me as well. There's been lots of discussion over the years about it being a year or less. Now we're talking 2 or 3 years. Big concern there, and I haven't heard any discussion today about the impact of these houses. What's all that heavy equipment going to do to our foundations? What's the noise? What's the odor? What's the dust? That acreage is also a big wildlife area, everything from small rodents to predators. Where do they go while all this work is happening? Probably trying to get into my house. So, and again, property values are a concern, but there's all these other things we want to talk about. One of the things that concern me also is, I would recommend not approving the transfer of ownership because we've only heard that there's a 60% plan. I'd like to understand what the whole plan is, what the impact is to all of the people that border that property, understand what needs to be done and how they're going to address some of these concerns, and have a 100% plan before we start the ball rolling. And that's really what we're doing tonight, is starting the ball rolling.
Yeah, Mr. C, just to be clear, so we're not talking necessarily about transfer of ownership tonight. It's just really of the division of the land and how we want to zone that land.
Got it.
That's what's being discussed tonight.
Thank you.
Okay.
And maybe I can ask Jeff to talk about, there's another landfill that what we did was we actually dug up a landfill in Washington County and lined it and redid it. And there are owners around that property as well, and that job took a couple of years. So maybe Jeff can sort of talk about where the residents were and maybe some of that, you know, what the impact was on residents and what they saw and stuff like that, to sort of give you an idea of what happened, at least at that landfill. I know that's one they're just finishing up now, so it would be something in its metro area.
I know, well, actually, I don't know because I don't live next to a landfill, but I've worked around these now for quite a while and understand the concerns that the neighbors do have. The 500 feet distance that you have is really a fairly safe distance. We've worked on a lot of sites where we've had residences much closer. The Hopkins site that we'll be working on this summer, the nearest resident is 50 feet from the edge of the garbage at that site. We had an extremely large one in Washington County that was actually a 3-year project where the closest resident was about 300 feet there. And there are odor concerns, there's no question about that. The dust usually isn't much of a problem because we do a lot of watering of the hall areas to make sure that the dust isn't a problem. And this one, you're kind of down in a valley anyway, and so we don't expect, you know, the litter or wind to be that much of a problem on this one. The 3 years that we kind of throw out is the extreme from when we start on that site until we walk away. The amount of time that we'll actually have the landfill open is something we're still trying to finalize. And what we try to do is balance how, like Ben had explained earlier, how much we open up at any given time. And the more we open up, the quicker we can get done, but the more odors that are emitted off of the area. And so it's kind of a balancing act that we try to look at. You know, if all of the residents really wanted us to come in and do it. I think at one time when we looked at this, we had talked about a minimum amount of time was about 14 months if we really wanted to come in, open it up, and get done as quickly as possible. So somewhere between that 14-month and probably, you know, about 2.5 years is the timetable that we can kind of work with.
Is this something we can work through the winter on, or do you have to stop?
No, we actually normally work through the winter. We actually prefer to, especially the beginning parts of it, to open it up late fall and work that first winter. When we first open them up is when the odor issues are going to be the worst, and we try to do that in the winter so that people aren't out barbecuing in their backyard. But that first summer there will be some odor issues. There's no question about it. But we really hope that they're not going to be too terribly bad. I don't know if I addressed all of your issues. The only other thing I did want to say, whether we owned it or BFI owned it, we're responsible for the long-term care, and so we would have to come in and do this construction whether BFI owned it or we owned it. Our ownership makes the management of that site much easier, and it opens up more avenues for different funding sources for us so that we can get it done a little bit quicker.
Okay, thank you very much. So again, I'm hearing out of the residents tonight, and I know there's one more gentleman that wants to speak. Please come forward. Hold on for 1 second, but please come forward. It sounds like the height issue and then the time frame.
I have those written down, and we'll talk to engineers when we get back.
Please come forward. State your name, tell us your last name, too, please.
Doug Reimers, R-E-I-M-E-R-S. I live on Sandy Point Road, which is down on the, would be the southeast area of that, the landfill there. And most of the gentlemen have already basically addressed what I was going to say as far as, one thing I am a little concerned about, if that's going to be a 40-foot dome there, because about a year and a half, 2 years ago, they redid that area right off Pioneer Trail and put that little radar thing in there. What's that, 20, 25 feet high, maybe? If you put a dome back there twice as tall as that, aesthetically, it's not going to look so good. The nice thing about the landfill right now is you can drive by there and you don't even know there's a landfill there. So aesthetically, if there's anything they can do to blend that in with the natural topography there and stuff to make it so it doesn't even look like a landfill would be the way to go. So I guess that's my concern as a homeowner there. Is right now, I can drive back to my home and I don't know there's a landfill there. But if I drive by a 40-foot dome every day, that's a different story.
Right.
The second thing was, I was wondering about the odors, but that gentleman already addressed it. Apparently there is going to be some odors to deal with.
Yeah, we're trying to address that as much as we can by opening up smaller areas and trying to keep it as, minimize the amount
I guess
of
that's all I
garbage
can
that's
ask you, the
open.
homeowner, is that you minimize it as much as you can.
And like Jeff said, we'll try to do it in the wintertime.
But there
We
will
always
be
try to
some-
do it in the wintertime as much as we can.
But there will be some odors to deal with.
Probably will be, yes, sir.
Right, okay. All right. And then the other one, actually addressed it as well. I was kind of curious why, if we got a privately owned landfill that's, in need of some repair, why we go through these gyrations to transfer that responsibility over to the state and the taxpayers. So, but apparently that's the case whether they own it or the MPCA owns it, correct?
Correct.
All right, okay.
And you do have to think about, we're going to spend the state will spend $17 million on that landfill to remediate the site. Do you want me to spend $17 million on state-owned property, or do you want me to spend $17 million on property that's owned by BFI?
Ideally, private owner should take care of it, but...
Well, no, that ship sailed already. We're not even talking about it.
That's probably a whole other discussion. But
that's right.
Anyway.
That was decided in 94. That's not an issue anymore.
Yeah, apparently. But anyway, again, my one concern is aesthetically that when it's done, it fits with that area out there as much as it can.
Great.
And then anything they can do to control the odor
during
the construction. Thank you.
Thank you very
Chairman,
much.
I just have a statement real quick. I think what Mr. Franzen alluded to before was this project is going to go in multiple phases. I respect and appreciate everyone's feedback, and that's what public hearings are for. But something I always caution people, and I do this to myself as well, is, these numbers, the 40-foot mound perhaps, that measurement may be subject to change. Our first and foremost priority in a situation like this as a planning commission is to take a look at our immediate charge, which is this evening. It's just basically rezoning of the plat. But I personally also take into consideration if I was a homeowner and I'm going to be near this as the individuals in the audience are tonight. And again, when seeing these proposals come to the Planning Commission, and Mr. Newman can agree with this to a certain degree, there is wiggle room, correct?
Mm-hmm, there is.
Okay. And there is going to be a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, there may be some horse trading, there may be some compromising, taking into heavy consideration the safety aspect of what we're going to be doing and how it affects our local community and our local residents. So we understand the concerns, but my recommendation is wait till we see some of the specific numbers come in. This is going to be a lengthy process. Mr. Franzen said 2 or 3 times coming before the Planning Commission. It escalates up to the City Council. Once we know the facts, then we can arm ourselves and see how we're going to work this thing out. So, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Just kind of in light of what Kevin was saying for the facts, I was wondering if you could provide the city with, and maybe we could see just some of the cost estimates, the difference between not moving the land, building the mound. It doesn't seem to me that the mound has anything to do with the environmental effect. It's a cost issue.
Okay, but the gas system is failing as it is today. If it were to fail, okay, that means that 300-foot area of concern would go to a 500 or a 600-foot area of concern. Okay, because I don't have any way to control the gas after that gas system fails. So at some point we have to
is a little more data. If you're talking a savings of $100,000 or something, not to say that's chump change or anything, but or if you're saying it's a savings of $6 million, I think that's important for everybody to know about.
I think what I heard, and certainly I've written down for myself, and I know that Jeff kind of alluded to it, if you go out there and you look at the landfill, what you're going to see, especially back up in here, is there's actually quite a bit of slope. This actually sits up pretty high, and then there's kind of a pit over here, and actually the landfill sits, in some places it looks like it might sit 20 feet lower or 30 feet lower than the surrounding property does, the residential areas up here. So what would be good to see would be kind of a topographic where you have let's say a 20-foot mound. Let's just use a number. If you use a 20-foot mound here, and that only brings it up to the level of the surrounding residents, then they don't see anything except a little swale here, and then it goes back up into a mound. So, and I don't know that offhand. We've not looked at that. That's not something we've cared to look at. So we would have to look at the topography as far as where the land is here, as opposed to the landfill is definitely lower than the surrounding property right now, and it definitely needs to be remediated if we were going to address any contamination at the site. And then certainly the other thing I heard tonight was how long the construction is. And certainly we can probably look at how we could, if it's possible to stage it differently, and like you said, whether or not we could, if it's going to cost a few dollars more to sit back for a month and wait until summer's over, well, that might be, it might be worth playing around with something like that. But understand if we can't sit around for several months waiting for something to happen, because that means construction companies demobilize. It takes them 4 months to come back. That all costs us money. That costs you money.
Yeah, I'd like to see what we're talking about here is all I'm saying. Then the second point, and I'm sorry to keep talking, but is just any other opportunities at screenings, whether that's trees, I don't know, fencing, any other opportunities to help these neighbors out. I mean, by my count, there's probably at least 20, 25 houses that are looking straight out at this site. And then you think about the people on the other side of the street that kind of look out towards it as well. So we're talking about a lot of landowners.
On the Washington County project that we just finished up, the city there actually had a lot of concerns about the main road that went along our west boundary. And we worked with them to basically put in a 4-row tree planting to try and screen it. The residents, some of them may like looking out over a large grassy area instead of looking at trees. I don't know, but if the city had a consensus of the people and wanted us to look at something else for screening along that east property boundary, we'd be willing to talk about it. Our costs for those liner systems run us just about $200,000 an acre. So for every acre we can shrink, we save about $200,000. And, so it's kind of a balancing act, not just with the liner systems, but, our costs for the gas extraction systems go down as our footprint does too. Those aren't, those are more dependent upon the site because we drill wells basically all the way through the fill, and so we have to look at how deep we're going and stuff. So I can't give you a good figure for the savings in gas, but the liner systems run us about $200,000 an acre. The other thing I did want to say is because that landfill doesn't have a liner underneath it, what we try to do is to dry entomb the waste to basically let it break down, but keep the amount of moisture that's coming out of the bottom of the landfill to a minimum. And by shrinking the footprint, we can basically reduce the amount of leachate that goes through the waste and percolates into the groundwater. So we do like to try and shrink them as much as we can, but it is always a balancing act, and we'll certainly take a look at that height concern.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate tonight's, the folks out in the audience coming forward. That's definitely part of the city record, and we appreciate your comments. So with that being said, does city staff have anything else to add before we move on?
Actually, I wanted to go over one condition of approval, and that has to be where the access is coming from, where the trucks go. And we want them to go through the BFI property out to the highway. We don't want any access going on to Old Riverview Road. That can't support any traffic. We don't want any access going out into any of the residential neighborhoods. So one of the conditions of approval is they have to provide a written document to us, which is a cross-access and maintenance agreement that gives the MPCA the ability to go across the BFI property to gain access to the highway. And that would be into perpetuity, so that we have an idea where the trucks are going to and from.
And is that, I'm looking on page 4 of your staff report, is that on there someplace?
Page 2, item number 1.
Page 2, item number 1.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I just wanted to confirm that access easement agreement is in draft form. It provides for access over the BFI property, over what I should say is the Woodland Sanitary Service property, to be correct.
So it doesn't sound like we're going to have a problem there. Very good. Okay, so with that being said, Commissioners, if you don't have anything to add, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, move to recommend approval of the zoning district change from rural to I-2 on 12.4 acres and preliminary plat of 263.32 acres into one lot and two outlots based on plan stamp dated February 2nd, 2012, and the staff report dated March 9th, 2012.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll move forward. Thank you very much. We look forward to...
Chairman, I just have one question
Yes, sir.
for the MPCA. When do you expect to be close to the final design? I'd like to give a kind of a general idea of the people that are here, the commission, when you think that'll be done, what time frame that is. Is this 2 months out, a month and a half, 3 months? July.
Okay. We'll look forward to hearing back from you then. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Mr. Franzen, do you have any planners reports for tonight?
One item, actually. We have a flyer. It's put on by ULI, and it's talking about real estate in the new economy. So if you want to go to that, you need to respond by noon, April 6th. You can either call Katie Anderson at the number that's on this page, or you can email her directly. It's held at St. Louis Park in the council chambers. I've been there, and the space is limited. So if you really want to go, sign up right away.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anything else?
Not at this time.
Okay. Any members' reports for tonight? Any continuing business? Any new business? If not, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Motion and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
I'm a victim. For more information, visit EdenPrairie.org.